It's only a kick, a jump, a block. It's only a serve. It's only a tackle, a run. It's only for the fans. After all, it's only pressure. You got this. Adidas.
Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about Oregon's new right to repair law, the latest local battle over pickleball noise, and we dive into our mailbag to read your thoughts on city smells and spring bicycling tips. Joining me on this midweek roundup is our very own executive producer, John Notarianni. It's Tuesday, April 2nd. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Midweek Roundup. Today is the day we look at stories we might have missed late last week or over the weekend and talk them through. John, how's it going?
Hey, good. How was your weekend, Claudia?
It was pretty cool. I went to Seattle to go catch a Mariners game.
Nice.
Hang out with a good friend. It was lovely. What about you?
Yeah, so if you heard yesterday's episode, I was chattering about the Pickles Public House, right? So I tried to go on Saturday on Mississippi. It was so crowded. There was not an open seat. I walked in and I was just like, this is too crazy for me. I don't want to wait for a chair at this bar. So I didn't make it in. But yeah, it definitely seemed like people were having a good time in there.
Oh, you know what's funny is we talked about the pickle bar at the Mariners game because I wanted a hot dog. And, one of the features I remember you saying was that they have dogs from all of the stadiums, so that you can get a Dodger dog, a Fenway dog, whatever. So I was like, all this dog talk, I want a hot dog. But they had two kinds. They had a junior and a Mariner dog. I should have got the Mariner dog, but it was $8. And I'm very cheap, John.
It's a fancy hot dog, yeah.
So the junior was $4, and I was like, I'm small. Dude, this was the worst hot dog. I mean, it was shriveled up. Like, they gave it to me, and I basically, I just showed them, and I was like, should I eat this? And they're like, oh, no, this is terrible. So they went to get me another one, and basically they realized all the small dogs, someone had made a mistake. They cooked them just as long as the jumbo dogs. So they were like these desiccated, it looked like, like a dried summer sausage, but that small. It was so gross. And the thing is, I was hungry, and for $4, I ate this dried up whatever. And my partner was just like, so do you think you're going to get the Mariner dog at the pickleball? I was like, no, I'm never getting a Mariner dog.
This sounds like a Portland Pickles promo effort. You should send them the photograph. They can put billboards up in Vancouver of what a Seattle hot dog looks like.
What are you doing to me? It was awful. But I did look around at the people who were like, I will spend almost $10 for a hot dog. And they seemed fine. They seemed happy. Yeah. Well, John, what's your story?
I'm looking at this new law that just got signed in that we kind of missed in all the flurry of the special session that just wrapped up. Pulling from some reporting by Dirk Vanderhart over at OPB, who just had a birthday last week. Happy birthday, Dirk, if you're listening.
Happy birthday, Dirk, 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 Dirk.
Dirk. And then Sean Hollister and Emma Roth at The Verge, Lauren Greenlee at iFixit, Kevin Purdy at Arts Technica, a lot of tech journalists, because I'm talking about the right to repair law that just got passed here in Oregon, signed by the governor last week. It's the strongest set of protections for consumers with broken consumer tech in the country. So let's say your iPhone craps out, the battery dies or something. Well, there's now a law on the books that the manufacturers have to give the same parts and tools and documentation to repair shops that they give to their own repair teams. And it has this whole thing going on with parts pairing that has been this growing problem. And it addresses that. They're saying it's the strongest one in the country, and it could really change the way that tech companies deal with whether or not you can fix their stuff going forward. It's really cool. But yeah, what do you think, Claudia?
Well, I did a little research, and there are currently only 4 states with a right to repair law. So it made me wonder how serious these large global companies like Apple were going to take our little individual state laws. But then I looked into it even further, and the EU as a whole, they just passed a form of a right to repair law in February, and the UK and India also have one. France passed one even before the EU.
Yeah.
And there seems to be even more stringent because they also pushed for the parts pairing like we did. I wasn't able to find any laws in place for African or other Asian countries other than India, but I feel like this is going to be the new normal.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. Like, at first I was just like, oh, is it just us being hippies? You know what I mean? Like, it's always the same four, too. I'm just like, is it California? Is it us?
Is it New York? It's like, yeah, it is.
We're going to change the world, you know? But it's actually, I was like, oh, no, it's happening. It's happening. And I hope that more Southeast Asian countries actually participate in this and are able to do this, because I don't know if you know this, but a good deal of this electronic waste actually ends up in Southeast Asian countries, which is why I think India was just like, oh no, us too, please, you know?
Yeah, I saw a stat that Oregonians throw away an estimated 4,800 cell phones every day.
Ugh.
Which is crazy. And so here's my personal take on this, Claudia. All right. So I have an older iPhone. Like, we both just went through the iPhone repair or replacement rigmarole, right? I've got an older phone and it works fine, but the battery is starting to die. So I took it to in phone repair shop on Saturday and got a new battery in it. But because of these parts pairing laws, where there's basically a serial number that needs to be validated by the company, now I get a pop-up message that I have an unauthorized battery in my phone, and the battery charging sort of stats are all broken. And this is something that a lot of companies have started doing. They sort of intentionally tank your device, even if you're using a part that works totally fine. And this is just a way for them to be able to sort of corner the market on repairs and pump more money out of these things by making them non-repairable. And it's not just phones where this is happening. Hewlett Packard has been discouraging the use of non-HP printer ink. There was even a thing with Keurig where they were trying to prevent you from using non-Keurig brand coffee pods in their things. Yeah, Oregon is sort of taking the first big swipe in the States to try and push back against it and be like, this is dumb. If somebody owns a piece of technology, they should be able to repair it as they see fit.
I agree. 100%. Imagine if I was like, actually. No, you know what I really am also into is there's a lot of community hubs now that are creating these repair workshops where you bring something like your toaster or, whatever, anything that you have that you're just I don't want to throw it away, but I don't know what's wrong. And these electricians, these, handy people from the neighborhood will repair it for almost for free or for parts because they're just trying to reduce waste. And I think that's so cool. And that's also happening with clothing, which I just love this movement of just how about we don't throw it away? How about we fix it?
Yeah. I mean, potentially, once this law kicks in, it's going to be several years before it actually
2027, right?
2027 is when it's going to be enforced, so to speak. But once that kicks in, it could really change the game on how much it costs to get things repaired. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah. Well, before we move on, I wanted to shout out Repair PDX. They do these repair cafes. That's what I was talking about, where volunteers fix broken household items. So you could bring in lamps and stuff like that. So if you go to repairpdx.org, you'll hear more about, you can check out more events and just they have a repair regional calendar.
I love it.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, the headline that caught my eye feels more like a companion piece to the Pho Gabo story we discussed last week, where, if you missed out on that, that's a North Vietnamese restaurant was shut down by a single neighbor logging complaints to the city for violating their odor ordinances. But in this story, John, I'm actually very, very sympathetic with the complainant. And I'm talking about this story. Willamette Week's Sophie Peel wrote about an Irvington club having to pause their pickleball playing after receiving a cease and desist letter from a neighbor that only lives 15 feet away from the court. Now, the letter demanded that the club immediately stop all their pickleball playing until the club finds a way to mitigate the noise. Now, John, you're laughing, but this isn't the first time someone has complained about pickleball being noisy for anyone who lives around the court. I Googled it just because I was like, what does it sound like? And it was just so piercing. For one, it's the squeaky shoes, so it's squeak, 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 and then it's pew, 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 pew. like nonstop.
Yeah.
And imagine there's like multiple courts. So it's like pew, 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 just over and over. And there's videos from like the Washington Post, NBC, like every major news organization has covered this. And they're just like, yo, people are bummed.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's super fun. I actually was looking into it, John. I was like, oh, pickleball. Like, that sounds like a fun thing because I live close to a covered, soundproof pickleball and tennis court, which seems like the thing to do. And I mean, this isn't the first time that it's hit our area. Like in early 2023, the Lake Oswego City Council actually voted to shut down pickleball courts at a public park because of this.
That's why I'm laughing. There's been so many like pickleball controversies over the last several years.
Yeah. John, if there was a pickleball court, we couldn't even do our jobs.
Oh, yeah.
I've been like, I'm sorry, we can't start recording right now. Someone is blowing leaves really loudly,
Yeah.
But just imagine this. This woman, Linda Scott, is 66, her husband, 88. So these are like retired folks. They've lived in this home, this Irvington home, which isn't cheap, y'all, for over 25 years. And it's been the last 6 years since the court opened. And she's been, is a quote here, she's been through a living hell. For the city's part, Scott has complained to Portland officials pretty much since it started. Like, hey, man, this is awful, but I didn't know this. The city noise code states that sounds not electronically amplified, created by like athletic and entertainment events other than motor vehicle racing events are exempt. I read that word for word, by the way. So this has been caught up at like the noise review board because they're just like, well, within the law, they're good,
Yeah.
But it's not just Scott who, of course, is like bummed. Like the whole neighborhood is just like, this is really loud. We don't like it. And so they started recording decibel readings. This is a like actual scientific tool as opposed to just like, it smells like food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the noise code says that noise must not exceed 55 decibels in residential areas. The sport is hitting 80 decibels and above. So I don't know. It's a clear violation to me. But I don't know. What do you think, John?
Oh, I've come around completely 180 on this. I think when I started reading about the pickleball wars, I was thinking of it as like a NIMBY thing, and I've completely changed. I've completely changed my perspective of believing that outdoor pickleball is like a legitimate public nuisance. I mean,
who plays pickleball? NIMBY.
But no, in the story it said that this has caused the Scots health issues, including, quote, headaches, mental distress, depression, anxiety, increased gastrointestinal issues. And imagine just that feeling of being so stressed of when the next one is going to hit, of when you're going to get the next pickle pang.
Pew, 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 pew. Just nonstop. Yeah. And then squeak, squeak, squeak. Yeah. For those of you who are just like, it can't be that loud. Yo, it is so loud.
I went down the rabbit hole on pickleball sound science. They say that pickleball thwacks, usually peak around 70 decibels, but that's about as loud as a noisy vacuum cleaner right next to you or a freeway. And apparently the issue with pickleball is that it's kind of like a mid-frequency noise that cuts through way more. You think about a tennis ball, it's sort of
it's thuds.
Yeah, it's like a thud. But the pickleball strike, this is from a professor at George Washington who studied the pickleball strike and says that this mid-frequency noise really cuts through a lot more. And there is this growing investment in pickleball tech. Have you heard about this at all, Claudia?
No, I have not heard about pickleball tech.
So USA Pickleball, they've been making considerable investments over the past 15 months to find high-tech solutions to the pickleball noise problem. So they're basically trying to engineer a softer pickleball paddle with acoustic fabrics and noise dampening paddles. There's this whole space race to design the silent pickleball paddle.
So 2 things. One, the Irvington Club Pickleball spokesman, Kevin Hanslick, actually made a statement to Willamette Week, and he wrote that the club disagrees with many allegations in their complaint, and it remains hopeful that they can reach a resolution. But they also explained all the concessions they've made. They're like, hey, we've restricted when we're playing. We actually told people they can't play music. And I was just like, oh, how kind of you. Could you imagine? Pew, pew, pew. And then just reeling in the years, because that's what I'm just assuming that is what it's playing. Like just like all this yacht rock and then like pew pew pew,
Yeah.
Anyhow, so they're like, hey, they're no longer like jamming their tunes. They're no longer playing 24/7. Just we're doing the best we can here. And they also said that they offered to put like a dampening cloth on the chain link fence that like faces the complainant's house. But the complainant's like, if you do that, I'm not going to get any sunlight. So now it's going to be loud and dark.
Yeah.
Why don't you just come in here and kick me in the stomach? Like, what is... I shouldn't say that I said that, because that's what I would have said if someone proposed something as asinine as that.
That's not a direct quote.
Anyhow, it sounds awful. I'm curious to hear what listeners think about that. I mean, I'm sure there's some pickleball listeners that are just like, guys, it's not that bad. Move on, whatever. But I want to hear, like, as the person who needs quiet and silence just in my life for living and for working, I'm just curious what other people think about that. So let's take a quick break here. And when we return, let's go into our mailbag. Before we dive all the way into the mailbag, John, I wanted to give a shout out to all the people who are supporting us in making this free daily podcast by becoming a member. And so I wanted to quickly read a couple of super sweet notes we received. Devin M. wrote, I capital LOV love CityCast Portland. The cast of characters are my absolute favorite. I look forward to listening every weekday morning. Thank you, Devin. That's really sweet. Like, I feel like this has been like one of the few places, John, where we get the most positive notes are from members, which makes sense. Like, who would sign up as a member and then tell us they hate us? But still, like, I just think it's been so nice. Dan S. shared that he joined because he feels like he gets a lot of value of our local political coverage and our local recommendations. He also really, really enjoyed the Ted Wheeler interview.
Yeah.
If you haven't heard that interview, y'all, you should check it out. We've heard from several folks that it's the first time they've heard Ted Wheeler sound like, and this is a quote, a human. So I don't know if that's a diss or what, but like it's
a take.
It's a take, yeah. There's also Kim W. who wrote and said, I just joined because I enjoy this sense of community, which is so sweet. So huge thank you to Devin, Dan, and Kim for becoming members. Of course, you most definitely don't have to become a member to join our growing CityCast Portland community. But if you're able to support us in that way, head on over to portland.citycast.fm.
Yeah. And I did want to throw in, we've got a little bit of a members giveaway that we're going to be doing.
Oh, do we?
Over the next couple days as well. We've got a couple pairs of tickets to OMSI, the Science Museum, which is amazing. The dinosaur exhibit that they have up right now looks super cool. And once we get 20 new member signups, you will be automatically entered into a drawing to win one of two pairs of tickets to OMSI. We're going to draw from the entire pool of members. So whether you've been a member for a long time or are just a new member, you could get that giveaway of a couple tickets. So if you're already a member, convince one of your friends to sign up. And once we get 20 people on board, we'll be doing a random drawing. And 2 people will be getting a pair of tickets to go down to the Science Museum.
Nice. Well, do you want to read some emails, John?
Yeah. So this is on the back of, we talked a little bit before the break about the faux Gabo controversy. And this clearly caught Jill's eye as well. Here's what Jill had to say. As a 72-year-old and 50-plus year vegetarian, I'm incensed by the forced smell closure of Faux Gabo restaurant. How ridiculous. Isn't Portland a city known for its miles-wide number and variety of restaurants? Your article said that the location has been a restaurant for 30 years, and suddenly there are intolerable smells. This person lives in a dense city. Are the flowering plants and shrubs and trees too smelly too? What about cars and trucks and bus exhaust? Has this person lived in a city before? I haven't, and I'm new to Portland, but I know that as a person very sensitive to all kinds of odors, that when I was home hunting recently, I would have avoided any house, apartment, or condo where the local air irritated me. There's lots of fresh air available, but in a dense neighborhood, in a dense city, there are also odors. So I wonder, too, is there something else going on here? Thank you so much, Jill. I feel like that's a rant that I could have written as well. I feel you, Jill.
Yeah. I mean, that's what caught everyone's attention was just like, you're complaining that it smells like food. People's mind went to other things as to why somebody was complaining, especially because the quote was, "It smells like a walk."
Yes.
And that just seemed a little racially coded.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to read one from Zach. So he wrote, "Heyo, CityCast Portland, longtime listener, first-time emailer. I'm also one of many organizers over at Bike Farm and got a little teary-eyed hearing John shout us out this morning." He's talking about our April guide.
Yeah, that came out yesterday. Mm-hmm.
We'll totally link to it if you guys want to check it out. But he continues, "Just wanted to say he nailed the gist of what we do and that we really appreciate the shout out. Well, time too, as we have so many bikes for sale right now. Our volunteers spend all of winter building up dozens of bikes in preparation for spring, and now's the time of year when everyone starts bike shopping, so it's not just Claudia." I did mention that I wanted to buy a new bike.
Mm-hmm.
He finishes off by saying, "Spring is the best time for biking in PDX. Hope to see you all out there, and feel free to give a shout out if you ever need more bicycle content from the community. Love what y'all do and would be stoked to help however we can," which is so sweet because, like, Zach, we might actually be emailing you very soon. Because I was like, what would be cool if we talked about how you buy a new bike, which sounds silly because I think when you're a kid, someone just gives you a bike and you're like, hooray. But when you're older, you have so many different, how long do you ride it? Do you want a road bike? Do you want a city bike? Do you do you want a cruiser for some reason? I don't know.
Do you want to spend $150 or $15,000?
Exactly. Yeah. And just knowing the bike that's best for your body type and for your fit, it's just, there's so many questions that I realize I have to answer. The beauty of having a podcast, John, is sometimes when you and I are like, how do we do this? We're just like, well, why don't we just have someone come on and tell us?
Why do we use our job to figure out this personal question that we have?
Yeah, and it might help somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Zach. And thank you to everyone who wrote in. If you ever want to send us a note about anything, send it over to portland@citycast.fm and just let us know if you'd let us read it on the show or if you'd like to stay anonymous or whatever.
Or you can leave us a voicemail, and the phone number is in the show notes of this episode. So if you go to the podcast app and click info, you can get the voicemail. You can give us a little phone call too.
Ooh, I love a little phone call.
I love a little phone call. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, John, for hanging out with me. And thank you for everyone for listening. Just a last shout out. No one seems to be reviewing the show, really. You know what I'm talking about, John?
Yeah. And the Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever. Yeah.
And we get the numbers. We know you're listening. And here's the deal. We also get your emails. We know you're opinionated. Why don't you head over to whatever app you're using and just give us a review. Just tell people what you think about the show. I mean, if you hate it, I would pass. That would be my suggestion.
But you did just listen to all the way to the end of the episode. So come on. How much do you really hate it?
But yeah, give us a review. Give us, it really does help other people find us because of the algorithm. I don't understand how that works, but it just does. And we'd super appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, Claudia.
Well, that's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.